The wind howled through the frozen mountain valley, carrying the sound of cracking ice and rushing water. The sun was already low, turning the sky orange and purple. A man named Daniel walked along the narrow path, his boots sinking into the snow with every step. He was alone, far from the town below. His backpack was heavy, but his heart was calm. He always came to the mountains to find peace, but this time there was no peace as he climbed higher. He heard a strange noise at first. It sounded like the cry of an animal, weak and broken. But when he stopped and listened again, he realized it was not an animal at all. It was a voice, soft and faint, carried by the river below. Daniel's pulse quickened. He dropped his pack and ran toward the sound. Snow crunched loudly beneath his boots. The trees grew thicker, and soon he reached the riverbank. The water was wild, rushing fast between sharp rocks, sheets of ice floating downstream. And there, clinging desperately to a broken log, was a girl. Her body was half submerged in the freezing water. Her hands trembled as she tried to hold on. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost glowing against the dim light. Her hair, silver like moonlight, clung to her face. She looked no older than 20, but she was clearly not human. Her eyes, wide, shining, and bright blue, locked onto him for just a moment before she slipped further into the current. "Help," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel didn't think, he didn't hesitate. He threw off his coat, kicked away his boots, and jumped into the icy water. The cold stabbed into him like knives, his breath ripped away by the freezing current. But he fought forward, arms slapping against the waves, his eyes never leaving the drowning girl. The river pulled at him, dragging him toward jagged rocks. His muscles screamed, his chest burned, but he reached her just as her fingers lost their grip on the log. He wrapped his arm around her waist and pulled her close. Her body was cold, too cold. He could feel her faint heartbeat against his chest. "Hold on," Daniel shouted, though he wasn't sure if she even heard him. The river slammed against them, but Daniel kicked with all his strength. Slowly, painfully, he pushed toward the shore. His hands clawed at the icy edge until finally, he dragged both of them onto solid ground. They collapsed on the snow, gasping for air. Water dripped from their clothes, turning into steam in the frigid air. Daniel coughed hard, his lungs aching. Then he looked at the girl. She was barely breathing. Her lips were pale, her skin glowing softly as if some strange light pulsed inside her. He leaned closer, trying to keep her awake. "Stay with me," he said, his teeth chattering. "Don't close your eyes." Her eyes fluttered open for just a moment. She stared at him with an expression he couldn't read. Fear, pain, maybe even surprise. Her trembling lips moved, and she whispered words that froze Daniel's heart. "Don't let them find me." And then she went still. Daniel's breath caught. He shook her lightly. "Hey, stay with me," he pleaded. Her chest rose faintly. She was still alive, but fading fast with no time to lose. He scooped her up in his arms. She was lighter than he expected. Her body fragile like glass, he wrapped her in his coat. Holding her close to his chest for warmth, his mind raced. Who was she? What did she mean by them? Why was she here in the middle of nowhere fighting for her life in a frozen river? But questions could wait. Right now survival came first. Daniel pushed through the snow, heading back toward his cabin deep in the woods. The storm was growing stronger, snow falling thicker. The girl stirred once, whispering something in a strange, musical language he didn't understand. The sound was beautiful and haunting, but her voice was too weak, and she slipped back into silence as Daniel trudged forward. The mountains seemed darker than before. The trees creaked and the wind carried strange echoes. It felt as if unseen eyes were watching, tracking him and the girl he carried. Still, he didn't stop step after step. He forced his way up the path, his legs shaking, his breath sharp in the freezing air. Finally, the glow of his cabin came into sight through the storm. He pushed the door open, rushed inside and laid her gently by the fire. Her skin was still glowing faintly, the light pulsing like a heartbeat. Daniel stared at her, shivering. His world had just changed in a way he could not understand. Outside, the wind howled, and far in the distance, a deep, unnatural sound echoed through the valley, like a horn calling in the dark. Daniel froze, his instincts screamed. The girl's warning repeated in his head. "Don't let them find me." And with that, the real danger had only just begun. The cabin door slammed shut against the storm. Daniel dropped the wooden beam across it, sealing them inside. His hands were still numb from the icy river, but he forced himself to move. He threw logs onto the fire until flames roared and warmth spread across the room. Steam rose from his clothes as they dried, but his eyes stayed on the girl. She lay curled on a blanket near the fire, her breathing shallow. Her silver hair glowed faintly in the flickering light. Every now and then her skin pulsed with that strange inner brightness, as if she carried a hidden lantern beneath her flesh. Daniel had never seen anything like it. He crouched beside her. "You're safe now," he whispered, though he wasn't sure she could hear him. He pressed his ear close to her lips. Her breaths were faint but steady. Relief washed through him, but also fear. Whoever she was, whatever she wasn't ordinary. Daniel stood, dripping water across the floor. He pulled off his wet shirt and hung it by the fire. His muscles ached, his skin stung from the cold, but the real weight pressing on him was the memory of her words. "Don't let them find me, them, who were they?" He turned as she stirred, her body trembled, her lips moved, and her voice came soft as falling snow. "Where am I?" Daniel knelt quickly. "My cabin," he said gently. "You almost drowned, but you're safe now." Her glowing eyes opened slowly, blinking against the firelight. For a long moment she only stared at him. Her gaze was sharp, as if measuring him, searching for truth in his face. Then with a weak voice she asked, "Why did you save me?" Daniel frowned, confused by the question. "Because you were dying, that's reason enough," but she shook her head faintly. "No one should have helped me."
"Not here." Her words sent a chill down his spine. He leaned closer. "Who are you?"
"What happened to you?" The girl tried to sit, but her body was too weak. She clutched her side as if in pain. "My name," she hesitated, "is Lyra." Her voice cracked, but there was a strange strength in it. "I was running from hunters. They wanted me to disappear." Daniel's heart thudded. "Hunters? Out here in the mountains?" Her glowing eyes locked onto his. "Not from your world," she whispered. Then her voice broke and she coughed violently. Daniel quickly gave her water, holding the cup to her lips. She drank greedily, though her hands shook. Before he could ask more, a sudden thump echoed outside. Daniel froze. His head turned slowly toward the door. The sound came again, closer, heavier, like boots in the snow. He grabbed the old rifle from the wall, his knuckles tight. He hadn't needed it in years. But now every nerve in his body screamed danger. He motioned for Lyra to stay quiet. Her glowing eyes widened with fear. She whispered something in her strange tongue. The words urgent and sharp. Daniel edged to the window, pulling back the curtain just a little. Outside, the storm blew fiercely, snow whipping through the trees. But between the flurries, he saw shapes, dark, tall shadows moving slowly around the cabin. Not men, not animals, something else. His throat tightened. The memory of the river came back. The strange claw-like tracks he had seen near the rocks, could they be the same ones searching now? Behind him, Lyra's voice trembled. "They found me." Daniel turned quickly. "Who are they? Why are they after you?" Her lips pressed shut, her eyes filled with tears. For a moment, he thought she wouldn't answer, but then she whispered, "They will not stop, not until I'm gone. If they see you with me, they will kill you too." The wind rattled the cabin walls. Another shadow passed close to the window. The fire crackled louder, but the warmth no longer felt safe. Daniel crouched beside her again. "Listen to me. I don't know what's happening, but you're hurt, you need rest. And whoever they are, I won't let them inside." Lyra's breath caught. Her glowing fingers clutched his wrist weakly. "You don't understand, you can't fight them." "No human can." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Maybe not. But I won't just hand you over." She stared at him, shock flickering across her face. It was as if she couldn't believe his words for a moment. Something softened in her expression. Trust, maybe even hope. Then the sound came again. Louder this time. Bang, bang, knocks on the cabin door. Heavy, unnatural. Daniel raised the rifle. His heart pounding, his eyes flicked to Lyra, who whispered only one thing, her voice full of dread. "Don't open it." And in that moment, Daniel realized his quiet mountain life had ended forever. Something far bigger than him had just stepped into his world, and it was waiting right outside his door. The knocks on the door faded into silence. The storm howled again, swallowing the sound. Daniel stood frozen with the rifle in his hands. His breath came fast, his muscles stiff. He waited for another knock. Another shadow, but after a long moment there was nothing. Only the sound of wind scratching against the wood. He lowered the rifle slowly, but his heart did not calm. Behind him, Lyra still lay by the fire, her glowing skin faint in the orange light. Her eyes watched him carefully. "They know I'm here," she whispered. "They will come back." Daniel's chest tightened. He wanted to ask 100 questions. Who were they? How had she ended up in the river? Why were they after her? But her fragile voice stopped him. "I must return to my ship," she said suddenly. Her words were soft but heavy. "If I stay here, they will find you too." Daniel blinked. "Your ship, you mean a spacecraft?" Her eyes glowed brighter as she nodded weakly. "Yes, hidden, not far in the high ridge." Her hands trembled as she tried to push herself up. "Take me there, please." "I cannot walk alone." Daniel stared at her, stunned. It was madness, taking a half-dead alien girl through a storm, with unknown hunters roaming outside. But something in her eyes, a mix of fear and determination, made him swallow his doubts. He couldn't leave her, not after pulling her from death once already. He sighed, setting the rifle down. "Fine, we'll go. But you need to stay close to me." She nodded faintly, almost relieved. Daniel wrapped her in a thick blanket and helped her to her feet. She was light, too light, leaning on him heavily as they stepped out into the storm. The cold struck his face instantly, snow whipping at his skin, but he kept moving one step at a time, guiding her through the trees. The forest was alive with strange sounds, branches snapping, wind howling, and every so often, the low hum of something unnatural. Daniel felt eyes on them, though he saw nothing. His grip tightened on the lantern in his hand. The snow crunched under his boots, and Lyra's uneven breaths whispered beside him. As they climbed higher, Daniel finally spoke. "Why are they hunting you?" Lyra hesitated, her glowing eyes looking away. "Because of what I carry," she said softly. Her hand touched the pendant at her neck, a small crystal that glimmered faintly even in the storm. "They want my blood, my power." My name erased, Daniel frowned. "Your name? What are you to them?" Her voice trembled, but she answered, "I am daughter of a great house on a world far from yours. My family rules with peace, but peace breeds enemies. My cousin betrayed us. He sold my location to hunters. They destroyed my guards. My ship crashed here. I ran." Daniel listened, the words heavy. He didn't understand alien houses or galactic politics, but he understood betrayal. He had seen it enough among humans. Still, the thought of this fragile girl being chased across worlds made his chest tighten. He pulled her closer as she stumbled. "Don't worry. We'll reach your ship." Her lips pressed thin. If it still stands, they moved through the snow for what felt like hours. The wind never rested, and Daniel's muscles burned from carrying her weight. Finally, they reached a high ridge where the trees thinned. The storm cleared just enough for Daniel to see ahead. His breath caught there at the base of a cliff lay the wreckage of a ship, half buried in snow, its silver hull cracked and blackened. Smoke still rose from the twisted metal. The ground around it was scorched, snow melted into frozen mud. Lyra gasped. Falling to her knees in the snow, her glowing eyes filled with tears. No, they destroyed it." Her voice broke as she clawed at the snow. "This was my only way home." Daniel stood behind her. Staring at the ruins, the ship looked beyond repair, twisted like paper crushed by a giant hand. He felt the weight of her despair like his own. She turned to him, trembling. "Now I am trapped. They will find me. I cannot hide forever." Daniel crouched, putting a hand on her shoulder. Her skin burned cold beneath his touch. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "You're not alone. You're safe with me. We'll figure something out." Her tears glowed faintly as they rolled down her cheeks. She looked at him almost as if she couldn't believe his words. "Why do you keep helping me?" she asked. "You don't even know me. You could leave me here. And they would never find you." Daniel met her gaze, his voice steady. "Because I don't walk away from people who need me, human or not." For a long moment she said nothing, her lips trembled. And then she nodded slowly, her eyes softened, showing the first sign of trust. But before either of them could say more, a sound shattered the moment. A deep, echoing roar rolled across the mountains. Not the wind, not thunder, it was something alive. Something hunting. Daniel turned. Scanning the darkness, his stomach clenched. He had heard wolves before, bears too, but this sound was different. Alien. Metallic and furious. Lyra's face went pale. Her lips formed one word: hunters. The snow stirred around them as shadows moved between the trees above. Tall shapes, glowing eyes cutting through the storm. Daniel tightened his grip on the lantern. his mind racing. The wreckage was useless, the storm unforgiving, the hunters closing in, and in that moment, he realized the truth. Bringing her here had only painted a target on both of them. The real fight was about to begin. The roar faded into the storm, but its echo stayed in Daniel's chest like thunder. He tightened his grip on the lantern, his other hand ready near the knife strapped to his belt. Lyra crouched low in the snow, her glowing eyes fixed on the dark shapes moving above the ridge. Her breath trembled, white mist curling into the cold air. "They've found me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel's heart pounded. He had never seen anything like the tall figures now stepping through the trees. Their bodies were wrapped in dark armor that shimmered faintly in the snow. Each carried strange weapons that glowed with an unnatural light. Their steps were heavy, leaving deep claw-like marks in the frozen ground. There were 3 of them, moving in a slow circle, scanning the wreckage, their heads turned with mechanical precision. Glowing red slits where their eyes should have been. The sound of their armor grinding was louder than the wind. Daniel pulled Lyra back behind a broken piece of the ship's hull. "Stay low," he whispered. She nodded, clutching her pendant tightly to her chest. One of the hunters raised a device and pressed it to the ground. A low hum filled the air, sending vibrations through the snow. Daniel felt it in his bones. Lyra flinched, her whole body glowing brighter for a brief moment. The hunter's head snapped in their direction. "They can sense me," she gasped, panic flashing across her face. "We cannot stay here." Daniel's mind raced. Running in the open would be suicide. The wreckage gave little cover, and the hunters moved with deadly purpose. He scanned the mountainside and spotted a jagged cliff nearby. Below it, a dark opening, the mouth of a cave. He pointed quickly. "There, we'll make it to the cave." Lyra's lips trembled. "They will see us. Then we move fast," Daniel replied. His jaw set, he pulled her to her feet, wrapping the blanket tighter around her. Her body was still weak, leaning heavily on him. But her eyes held trust now, trust that gave him strength. The hunters spread wider, scanning the wreck. One knelt and touched the snow, growling something in a deep alien tongue. The sound was like metal scraping stone. The others hissed in response. Their weapons pulsed, glowing brighter. Daniel felt his stomach twist. If they waited any longer, they would be trapped. He leaned close to Lyra's ear. "When I count to 3, we run." She swallowed hard but nodded. 1, Daniel whispered, his legs bent, ready to push. 2, his grip on her arm tightened, a crack of light flashed across the snow. The nearest hunter had raised its weapon, scanning. 3. Daniel hissed, they ran, snow flew under their boots. Daniel's breath burned in his lungs, Lyra stumbled beside him. But he pulled her forward, never slowing. The storm swallowed their footsteps, but the hunters reacted instantly. A burst of red light tore across the ground behind them, melting snow and splitting rocks. The air hissed with heat. Daniel ducked low, dragging Lyra down as another blast scorched the air above. "Keep moving," he shouted. They scrambled, slipping on ice, Daniel's heart hammering like a drum. The cave mouth grew closer, dark and wide, salvation in the storm. But one of the hunters was faster. It leaped from the ridge, landing with a crash in the snow between them and the cave. Its glowing eyes locked on Lyra. The weapon in its hand pulsed with deadly energy. Daniel froze for only a second, then instinct took over. He shoved Lyra to the side and lunged forward, swinging the lantern. The glass shattered across the hunter's armor, sparks flying as flames licked at its chest. The creature roared, a sound that shook the mountain. Its weapon swung, slicing through the air. Daniel barely rolled aside, snow exploding where he had stood. His heart raced. He was no soldier, no fighter. But survival pushed him harder than fear. Behind him, Lyra raised her pendant weakly. Her glowing fingers traced symbols in the air. For a heartbeat, the pendant flared, sending a burst of light into the hunter's face. The creature staggered, roaring in rage. "Now!" she cried, her voice filled with desperation. Daniel grabbed her hand. Pulling her past the blinded hunter, they stumbled together, crashing into the mouth of the cave just as another blast shook the ground. Rocks tumbled down, sealing part of the entrance. Inside the cave, darkness swallowed them. Only Lyra's faint glow lit the space, casting trembling shadows on the stone walls. Daniel leaned against the rock, his chest heaving. His hands shook, his body aching. But they were alive. Lyra collapsed beside him, clutching the pendant to her chest. "They will not stop," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They will hunt us until I am taken." Or until I am dead, Daniel looked at her, sweat and frost mixing on his face. He had no answers, no plan, but one thing was certain. He had chosen this path, and there was no turning back. He pressed his back to the cave wall, listening as the hunters' voices echoed outside, metallic and cruel. The storm howled louder, but it could not hide their presence. The hunters were waiting, circling, and Daniel knew. The mountain was no longer his sanctuary. It was now their hunting ground. The cave was cold and silent except for the faint crackle of rocks settling under the storm outside. Daniel leaned against the damp wall, his chest rising and falling with each heavy breath. Beside him, Lyra sat curled on the stone floor. Her glowing pendant clutched tightly in her hand. Her light filled the small cave with a soft blue shimmer. Daniel wiped his face with his sleeve, his muscles trembled, and his lungs burned from the run. Still, his eyes never left the mouth of the cave. Through the cracks between fallen rocks, he could see faint red glows moving outside, the hunters' eyes sweeping across the snow. They hadn't left. They were waiting. "We can't stay here long," Daniel whispered. His voice was low, almost a growl. "They'll search every hole in this mountain." Lyra's eyes lifted slowly, her face pale, her body weak. But her voice carried an unusual strength. "You don't understand. They are not searching, they already know I am here. They can feel me." She pressed the glowing pendant tighter to her chest. "It is this, it calls to them," Daniel frowned, his eyes narrowing. "That crystal? What is it?" For a moment she didn't answer. Her gaze flickered between fear and hesitation as if the truth itself was dangerous. But finally she spoke. "This is the heart of Velara, a gift passed through my family for generations. It holds our bloodline, our memory, our power. Without it, I am nothing. With it, I am everything. That is why they hunt me." Her words struck Daniel like a stone. He stared at the glowing pendant, at the way it pulsed in rhythm with her faint heartbeat. "So that's why they destroyed your ship? That's why they chased you into the river," he said, his voice tight. "They want what you carry. Not just you," Lyra nodded. "Yes, and if they take it, my people will fall, the hunters will rise, and war will follow." Her voice cracked, her eyes glistening with tears. "All because of me." Daniel felt a strange heaviness settle in his chest. He wasn't a soldier, not a hero. He was just a man who liked the silence of the mountains. Yet here he was with a girl from the stars, holding something that could decide the fate of entire worlds. He shifted closer, lowering his voice. "Then why trust me? Why tell me this?" Lyra turned her glowing eyes toward him. Her gaze pierced him, soft but unshakable. "Because you are human," she whispered. "Humans cannot be bent by their illusions. They cannot control your mind as they do mine. That is why you pulled me from the river when others would have let me drown. That is why I trust you now." Daniel blinked, stunned. "Illusions? What do you mean?" As if to answer, a faint hiss echoed at the cave's edge. A shadow shifted, glowing eyes peering through the cracks. Daniel's body tensed, his hand moving to his knife. But then a voice filled the cave, deep and smooth. "Human," it whispered in perfect English. "Give her to us, and we will let you live." The sound crawled through the stone walls, heavy and hypnotic. Daniel's grip on the knife tightened. For a moment his vision swirled. He thought he saw the cave stretch wider, the firelight of his cabin flicker in the corner of his eye. Home, safety, warmth. Then he shook his head sharply, the illusion snapping away, his heart hammered. Sweat rolled down his neck. He turned to Lyra, who was shaking violently, her glowing hands covering her ears. "They're trying to twist your mind," she gasped. "Do not listen, do not look." Daniel crouched in front of her, holding her shoulders. "Hey, look at me, I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere." Her eyes opened, wide and frightened. But when she saw him steady and unbroken, something changed. Relief washed over her face. Her trembling slowed. The hunters outside hissed in frustration. Their voices grew sharper. "No human resists. Hand her over, human. Hand over the heart." Daniel stood tall, glaring at the cave entrance. His voice rang firm. "You'll have to come in and take her." The shadows hissed louder. But they didn't break through. Not yet. Lyra's eyes glowed brighter, tears shining in the soft blue light. "You are the first, the only one who cannot be bent," she whispered. "Do you see now? You are not just my rescuer. You are my shield." Daniel felt the weight of her words sink into him. Heavy, terrifying, but also powerful. He wasn't ready for any of this. But he knew one thing. He would not abandon her. Not now, not ever. Lyra's trembling hand reached for his, her fingers cold against his calloused skin. Daniel, if we survive this, I must tell you everything. About my world, about the war, about why I was sent here. Her voice dropped lower, almost breaking. But for now, promise me one thing. Do not let them take me alive. The fire of determination flared in Daniel's chest. He squeezed her hand, his jaw set. I promise. Outside, the hunters' voices rose, chanting in their alien tongue, preparing for the next move. The cave shook as their weapons struck the rocks. The storm screamed louder, as if the mountain itself was warning them. Daniel pulled Lyra closer to the shadows, gripping his knife tighter. His heart thundered, but his eyes stayed sharp. He had chosen this fight, and he would see it through. The secret was revealed. The truth had changed everything, and now there was no turning back. The cave shook again as the hunters' weapons struck the rocks. Small stones rained down, echoing in the dark. Daniel pulled Lyra deeper inside, her glow barely lighting the jagged walls. His breath was sharp, his body tense. Every second felt heavier than the last. They will break through soon, Lyra whispered, clutching the glowing pendant. We must leave now, before the mountain collapses around us. Daniel glanced at the narrow path twisting deeper into the cave. The air there was colder, filled with a sharp metallic smell. It was dangerous, but staying was worse. He nodded. Come on, stay close. He helped her to her feet, her body still weak but her eyes filled with determination. Together they moved through the tunnel, their footsteps crunching softly on the frozen stone. Behind them, the hunters' growls echoed. Deep and merciless, the tunnel opened after a long climb, revealing an old mining shaft. Wooden beams cracked under the weight of years. Rusted tools lay scattered in the dust. Daniel's lantern flickered weakly, but Lyra's glow pushed the darkness back. This mine, it leads under the ridge, Daniel said, his voice low. If we follow it, we can reach the valley on the other side, Lyra nodded faintly. Yes, but we must hurry. They pushed forward, the tunnels winding endlessly. Daniel's nerves sharpened with every sound. The drip of water, the shifting of stone, the distant echo of footsteps that weren't theirs. The hunters were following, closer than ever at last. The shaft widened into a cavern, its roof stretched high, glittering with crystals that shone faintly in Lyra's light. Daniel paused in awe, but Lyra's eyes went wide for a different reason. Standing in the middle of the cavern was another figure. Tall, cloaked, waiting. Daniel's grip tightened on his knife. His voice came hard. Who's there? The figure lowered the hood slowly, revealing a face both familiar and strange. His skin carried the same faint glow as Lyra's. His eyes sharp and silver, his expression calm. Even warm Lyra gasped. Cyrus. Her voice cracked. My cousin. Daniel's stomach sank. He remembered her story, the betrayal. The cousin who sold her out. He stepped in front of her, knife ready. So you're the one who sent them. But Cyrus lifted his hands, his voice smooth. No, you are mistaken. I came to help. His words rolled like silk. Convincing, dangerous. I saw the hunters land. I followed their trail. I could not let them take you. Lyra. Lyra's breath trembled. Her heart longed to believe him. Daniel saw it in her eyes. Cyrus was family, blood of her blood, her defenses weakened. Don't trust him, Daniel said firmly, keeping his knife raised. He's lying. I can feel it. Cyrus's eyes flicked to Daniel, cold and calculating. And who are you, human? He sneered. Why risk your life for her? She is not yours to protect. She belongs to her people. To me. Lyra shook her head, tears forming. No, you betrayed us. I know what you did, Cyrus. You sold my guards. You gave the hunters our location. For the first time. Cyrus's smile faded, his silver eyes hardened. And what choice did I have? His voice thundered in the cavern, echoing off the walls. Our house was weak. The hunters promised power. They promised survival. You would have doomed us all with your mercy. Daniel stepped forward, knife gleaming. So you betrayed your own blood for power, and you expect her to follow you now? Cyrus's lips curled into a sneer. I expect her to see reason. She cannot survive with you, human. You will only lead her to death. Give her to me, and perhaps I will let you live. The words struck like poison. The cavern air grew heavy. Lyra clutched Daniel's arm, fear and doubt fighting in her eyes. Daniel, she whispered, what do we do? Daniel looked at her, then back at Cyrus. His voice was steady, unshakable. We keep moving with or without him, but we don't hand you over. Cyrus's eyes narrowed, cold fury flashing. So you choose him, a stranger, over your own blood? So, Lyra's voice cracked, but it was clear. I choose the one who saved me, the one who stood against the hunters when no one else would. Cyrus's face twisted, rage breaking through his calm mask. Then you are a fool, he hissed. His hand rose, revealing a weapon hidden beneath his cloak. Its blade glowed faintly. Humming with deadly energy, Daniel stepped forward, knife ready. His heart thundered, his body screamed with exhaustion, but he stood firm. If you want her, you'll have to kill me first. The cavern filled with silence, broken only by the distant roars of hunters echoing closer through the tunnels. The choice was clear: fight here and now or fall into the hands of the hunters. Cyrus's weapon crackled as he raised it higher. Lyra's glow brightened as she clutched the heart of Velara tighter, and Daniel's grip on his knife tightened until his knuckles turned white. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm about to break inside this cavern. The cavern was silent for a heartbeat. The crystals above glowed faintly, reflecting the blue shimmer from Lyra's pendant and the red spark from Cyrus's weapon. Daniel stood between them, his knife small compared to the glowing blade, but his stance steady. Outside, the hunters' roars echoed closer. The storm no longer hid their presence, they were coming fast. The cave trembled as if the mountain itself feared what was about to happen. Cyrus's voice was calm but sharp. Last chance, cousin. Come with me and I will protect you. I can still make the hunters my allies. We can rule together. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head. You speak of ruling, Cyrus, but all I hear is chains. You would enslave us to survive. That is not our way. His face twisted with anger. Then you will die with him. He pointed his glowing blade toward Daniel, sparks dancing across the cavern floor. Daniel stepped forward, blocking Lyra with his body. You're not taking her. His voice was low, steady. His knife gleamed faintly, nothing compared to Cyrus's weapon, but his resolve burned brighter than any steel. Cyrus lunged first, his blade hissed through the air. Daniel barely dodged, the heat searing past his face. He swung his knife, but Cyrus blocked it easily, sparks flying. The force knocked Daniel back, his boots sliding in the dust. Pathetic human, Cyrus spat. You think you can stand against me? Daniel's chest heaved, sweat mixing with dust. He knew he couldn't win a fair fight, not against an alien armed with deadly tech. But he also knew he didn't need to win. He just needed to protect her. He darted sideways, drawing Cyrus's strikes away from Lyra. Each blow sent shockwaves through the cavern, crystals cracking and falling. Daniel's arms ached, his knife hand shaking. Still he kept moving, forcing Cyrus to follow him. Away from her, Lyra watched, her pendant glowing brighter with each heartbeat. Her hands trembled as she lifted it, whispering words in her strange tongue. The cavern walls shimmered faintly, symbols flickering like fireflies in the stone. Cyrus noticed, his eyes widened. No, you don't know how to use it. He lunged toward her, desperation breaking his calm. Daniel roared and tackled him. The two crashed to the ground, rolling across the stone. Cyrus's blade slashed close, slicing Daniel's coat but missing flesh. Daniel's knife scraped against Cyrus's armor, leaving shallow cuts useless against the glowing metal. Pain shot through Daniel's arm as Cyrus struck him hard. Daniel fell back, his knife skidding across the floor. Cyrus rose quickly. His glowing blade raised for the kill, Daniel? Lyra screamed, her pendant flared with blinding light. Symbols burst into the air, swirling around her. The hunters' roars outside grew louder, but for a moment even they paused. The cavern glowed like a star. The energy struck Cyrus, sending him stumbling back, his blade cracked, sparks exploding. He screamed as the light burned across his skin. Daniel crawled forward, grabbing his knife again. His chest heaved, his body bruised. But when Cyrus staggered toward Lyra again, Daniel did not hesitate. He threw the knife with all his strength. The blade spun through the light and struck Cyrus's shoulder. He roared in pain, dropping his weapon. Sparks hissed as it clattered to the ground. Daniel rushed forward, tackling him once more. This time, he pressed the knife deeper, fighting with everything left inside him. Cyrus struggled, stronger, faster, but Daniel's grip was unrelenting, fueled by something Cyrus would never understand: human will. Lyra's voice rose louder, chanting words Daniel couldn't understand. The pendant's glow expanded, filling the cavern with a storm of blue light. The walls shook, dust falling like rain. The hunters outside screamed, their voices breaking as the light touched them. Cyrus's strength faltered, his eyes glowed with fury and fear. "This is not the end," he hissed. "Others will come, they will take her. They will burn your world." Daniel shoved him back, his voice sharp. "Then let them try." With one final cry, Cyrus fell, the light from Lyra's pendant wrapping around him like fire. His body twisted, then dissolved into nothing, leaving only the faint echo of his scream. Silence followed, broken only by Daniel's ragged breaths. He turned to Lyra, who collapsed to her knees, the pendant dimming in her hands. Her face was pale, but her eyes glowed with relief. "It's over," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "For now." Daniel knelt beside her, pulling her close. His arms held her tightly, her fragile body pressed against his chest. "I promised I wouldn't let them take you. And I meant it." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "You kept your promise, when no one else would have outside." The storm slowly eased. The hunters were gone, scattered or destroyed by the pendant's power. The mountain lay quiet once more, but Daniel knew it was not peace. Not really, this was only the beginning. As dawn broke, light spilling across the snowy peaks, Daniel stood at the cave mouth with Lyra leaning against him. Her pendant glowed faintly, like a heartbeat that refused to die. She looked at him with soft, glowing eyes. "You saved me, Daniel, but by saving me, you have bound yourself to my war." Daniel's jaw tightened, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "Then I'll fight it with you," he said simply. And in that moment, the choice was made. The human and the alien girl, two strangers brought together by fate, would stand side by side against enemies far greater than either had ever known. The mountain was no longer a refuge. It was the first battlefield,